Hi, I'm Lippy.
And I'm Grumpy. Together, we're Lippy and Grumpy do podcasting.
This week, lots of listener feedback, toilet twinning, job interviews, the joy of Monopoly, and I have a bone to pick.
So, Lippy, we've had a fair bit of feedback this week.
We really have this week.
Yes, it's quite encouraging. We do read all of it. We obviously can't include all of it, otherwise our podcast would be, well,
hours and
hours and hours. And nobody really wants hours and hours of us droning on. So thank you, we do appreciate it. And if we don't read it out, then, well, it's just tough, really. So, as ever, we've had an email from Davros, the voice of Scaro, he starts the email with. It goes on some sort of explanation about the cottage cheese sandwich, which is best left, quite frankly, unread.
Yes, yeah.
Unspoken. He does admit to having problems cooking shepherd's pie, or cottage pie, depending on obviously which meat goes in it. The potato always sinks to the filling, which I can't remember whether I've had that problem or not. I have to say I do tend to cook the mince first and let it go cold before putting the potato on, so maybe that has an effect. Or maybe you're not using enough mince. Too much liquid.
Yes, too much liquid.
Yeah. Stop being so stingy putting put more
His
mince
potatoes
in.
aren't light and fluffy.
Possibly not heavy Maris Pipers instead of fluffy something else. Potato. Oh, King Edward's, that's the other one. He then goes on to talk about festive films. Really doesn't do them. So he's got a list of films.
I was a bit shocked.
He does mention Hans Gruber, though, but in a different guise, that of Allo Allo, which is a series that you probably have never seen.
I've not seen it, I have heard of it.
It is spectacularly funny, actually. I have to say, it's from, I think it was the 80s or early 90s it was out, and it was very, very funny. There's some stereotypical characters in there that you probably couldn't make anymore. So there is a grouper in there, but it's not that one, it's a different one. No. And Orange Marshall 1 also got in contact with me.
He did. And we have the same favourite dessert.
Yes, I'd completely forgotten about banoffee pie,
Me
which has got
too.
bananas in. I do quite like that.
I love banoffee pie. I would pick that out of the majority of things most times.
Yeah, the advantage of banoffee pies is mostly homemade, I feel. They tend to be quite nice. Also a fan of the cheese sandwich.
Yes.
But not so keen on avocados for some reason. Don't know
They make you sick.
Well, yes.
In my case, anyway.
They do, yes, absolutely. A good point, though, about not showing your guests a picture of what you've cooked in terms of from the recipe book. So that is a top tip.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. And it has a similar sort of Christmas film list as we have, although it does claim to watch The Wonderful Life every year. But yes.
No.
And I had a brief conversation with Orange Marshall 2, who was attempting to try a black pudding and sausage roll from our local butchers. And every time he goes in, they're sold out. I accidentally fell in there on Saturday and ended up buying 2 sausage rolls. So that was Saturday wiped out for him. I don't think they cooked that many. So,
no, I can imagine they go quite quickly when they do go.
But you've got to time it right because they are freshly baked. These were freshly baked. And obviously if you go very early on, then they're not going to be there. If you go late, then I've been. So.
Yeah, then they're gone anyway.
Yes. The other thing from last week was we discussed whether Die Hard was a Christmas movie or not. And the Radio Times offered some insight into why it is definitely a Christmas movie.
Go on,
and
then.
Their basis is, if you remove Christmas from the story, does it work?
Ah.
And it does not, because they were having a late night party in the Nakatomi Towers. Obviously, this is difficult as you've not seen the film.
Yeah.
Also, they chose it because there was not much in the way of stuff going on as well. Sort of part of the heist. So if you take all of that away, the story doesn't really work.
Oh, so applying that logic, Home Alone is not a Christmas film.
Correct.
Although, no, it's not, because I was going to say they wouldn't be robbing the whole street. That is more likely to happen at Christmas because a lot of people do go away at Christmas. But he could have been left on his own. They could have just gone on a normal holiday.
That is possible.
And he was left. But there wouldn't have been as many of them. But it still would have made sense.
Yes, if you apply that logic, then you're correct. Home Alone is not a Christmas film.
There's going to be a lot of angry comments for us saying that Home Alone isn't a Christmas film.
No, it is filmed at Christmas rather than a Christmas film. But yes, bring it on. So I have a few notable events for the week. There was quite a lot going on here. So we had another Boeing 747 from British Airways land at Dunsfold Park. We did actually manage to capture it. And I've even got it on, well, not on film, but on a SD card. Just about managed to capture it as it went over the house. So I'll pop that on Instagram and other things. So that was quite exciting. Yeah. Unfortunately, it landed at the other end. It landed at the Dunsfold end, so we didn't see so much of the approach, which was a bit of a shame. But hey-ho. Davros has been busy. There's new Daleks for the Christmas special, presumably, with lots of new blue lights on it. Having thought about this, it does look a bit like an aftermarket stereo you get in a car park cruiser car. So when they used to have car club meets at the car park at Woodbridge in Guildford, you get hi-fis in there, or car stereos in there, with lots of blue flashing lights in there, and it does look a bit like that. So almost certainly that will have angered Davros. So I would imagine a bit of flaming going on. And I came across a very odd thing called toilet twinning.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, what on earth
is
toilet twinning?
Yeah, it's brilliant, though, because you have to have a look and find out what it's about. And essentially, it's a charity that takes a donation of, I think, £60, and then you can twin your toilet with another toilet in a third world country. So it's a way of getting some money to places that have very poor sanitation. So really very good idea, and I think I'll be twinning one of our toilets.
A very good name.
It is a really clever name.
It's very intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely. Very impressed with the whole thing. So, yes, look forward to a picture of a toilet from a third world country hanging up in the downstairs loo in the near future. So that'll go down well.
I've seen a toilet when I went to Tanzania. It's not a pretty sight.
No, most of them seem to be made of corrugated iron and timber. So, yes. Well,
the service ones that I went to, oh my God. I don't think I actually weed in the end. I think I went behind a bush because the toilet itself was scarier than a bush.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to fall in. So like some of the French ones where I've... yes, you end up removing your trousers because you don't want the car keys falling down the hole in the middle. Anyhow, and I think we may be covering Christmas cards again in a minute. But so we had the first few through the door this week. My cousin is normally the first, but she was a couple of days late. So not on the top. But she did put a very nice message in the card. So keep up the podcasting.
Oh, that's nice.
Very nice. So I sent her one of my slightly oddly purchased Lippy and Grumpy beer mats that are
paper thin.
Well, they're microns thin. I've never seen anything quite like it, and unfortunately, I've got 500 of them. So yes, that'll take a while to go. So while we're talking about Christmas cards, why don't you have your bone rant?
Well, we received 2 Christmas cards today. Super excited. One of them had my name on, one of them had mine and Chris's name on. So I was like, I'll open the one with just my name on it. You open the other one. So I opened mine. Very lovely. Thank you, cousin Emily. She, the frozen camper, sent across a card for us. Then I look over at Chris, who has glitter everywhere.
Everywhere?
Yes. It had all fallen off the card. It was everywhere. And then we opened the card thinking, oh, this is so annoying. We literally spoke about this on the podcast a few weeks ago. Thinking, oh, it might be an auntie or someone. No, it was from you.
It was from me. So I'm assuming that's thank you.
But yeah, thank you for the lovely Christmas card.
Yes. In my defence, they were purchased last January.
I did.
in a 2/3 off sale.
Yeah, because it was also the weirdest picture on the front of the card.
I thought they were quite nice.
It was super cute, but I feel like you need to have given it to someone with a terrier.
Well, I gave it to somebody with a car.
Good point. Good point. The Christmas card, for those who cannot see, is a car with 2 terriers in it with some tartaned hats and gloves and then glitter covering the whole front, which then my partner decided to rub on my face.
Excellent, good. Well, I think a picture of the card on Instagram's called for.
I'm very disappointed.
Oh dear. Oh well. Never mind.
And you wait, because I'm going to get you back for that.
Oh really?
Yes.
But you don't know my
You think a
address.
glitter card. I do know your address.
No, you know where I live. You don't know the address.
Yeah, of course I do. It's still the address I have on my driver's licence.
Oh, good grief.
That's a lie. I changed that the other day.
Anyway, message to the frozen camper if she's listening to this one. No chance of you getting a card from Laura. She's no idea where you live.
God, no. I'll bring it. I'll bring one on Christmas.
Excellent. The other thing that I was tipped off by Orange Marshall 1 is Phyllis Tuckwell Hospice, which covers this area and also sort of to the west of Guildford, I would guess, up towards Farnborough, Farnham, that sort of area. So they've got a number of Christmas light trails that they've got sort of popped on a map where there's houses.
Like good houses.
Yeah, absolutely. And most of them are sort of in that Farnham, Farnborough triangle around the Blackwater Valley route rather than over towards Guildford. But obviously they're trying to raise money. They cover a massive area. There's very few hospices in this area. So well worth supporting.
We may have to go have a little looky.
Yes, but there's a map on the website you can print off and then sort of have a bit of a meander around and cause all sorts of traffic mayhem by stopping in the middle of the road, no doubt.
Oh, I love to cause a bit of traffic mayhem.
Indeed, yes. So in your last week of not working, is there any notable events?
I've really taken this week as a holiday week.
What, as opposed to all the others?
Yes. I think, once I got the job, I was like, okay, I can do whatever I want every day. I don't need to look for a job. Like, I can just chill, play games, watch films, do my sewing, just chill. But in the back of my head, I was like, they may contact me being like, well, in 24 hours, you're going to work. So I got to thinking like, well, this could be my last day off, but it might not be my last day off. And then they emailed me with a week's notice before I started, which is lovely.
That's nice.
This has really been a holiday because I know I don't have to worry about work. But no, I'm not really. My partner's off today because he had to go to the hospital and take some swabs. So we had a fun day. We went to the shops to buy a few last minute Christmassy things. Oh, and I found out about this really awesome tree place in London. It's London Christmas Trees. They, this year and for forevermore now, are doing a rented Christmas tree.
Oh, well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so you rent the Christmas tree in the pot. And then when it comes to January, they come and take it back from you, look after it, plant it back into a bigger pot and things that most people probably should do, but don't do. If you do buy a potted Christmas tree, that is. And then each year you can ask for the same tree back so you can keep having your tree as it grows. And then once it reaches 7 foot, they plant it in a forest.
What a great idea. I do remember vaguely hearing about that a couple of years ago, so I'm really pleased that's carried on.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good idea because people love real Christmas trees, but they are such a waste of tree.
Yes, they are. Although they don't... Well, I suppose the one with the roots is the whole tree, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some friends of ours who live up towards Oxford planted a tree, I believe, about 10 years ago in their front garden that they bought. So it was a normal-sized tree for indoors. It now reaches the top of the house.
Oh, God.
So it blocks out the light for the front of the house quite significantly. But they've just put the lights on it, and it is like something out of National Lampoon, to be honest. It's this enormous great tree.
You can see it from space.
The thing is, you can't now chop it down. It is now a local landmark. That's the word, landmark. I think it's worth just pointing out, you were talking about your partner and having swabs, that he is going in for a knee operation.
It's not something. No,
I realised when I was editing the Formula 1 accident piece last week that we didn't actually mention Formula 1 for 5 minutes. And the problem is, because we have a conversation beforehand about what we're going to talk about, you tend to forget
to name the subject.
Yes, so note for the future. Mention what you're talking about in the first couple of seconds, not 5 minutes in.
Especially when it's something bad.
Well, yes. So, Lippy, job interviews. I've probably had a lot more than you.
I would say so. I haven't had too many in my time of jobs, to be honest. I haven't had that many different jobs.
No, you haven't actually.
I've tended to stay with a company and kind of work my way up a little bit. One of my ones, I had a ski season, and the interview for that was done over Zoom all those many years ago I think it was, how am I? Oh God, it was like 4 or 5 years ago now.
It would have been Skype, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, it was Zoom, over Skype.
I'm sure Zoom existed back then.
And during the Skype call, the lady interviewing me pipes up that she lives down the road. This is when I was still living at home, so she lives in the village next to us. And I was like, oh my God, didn't really researched the company enough at that age, obviously, I should have probably known that, but oh well. And then chimes in saying, I've actually come to where you work now to see what your customer service skills are like.
Oh, really?
And there's me like, I don't recognise her. What have I said? What have I done? I was like, oh, please pray I was out back while she was shopping there. But apparently she used to come to where I worked a lot, so it wasn't weird. It wasn't like she specifically came. She just kept an eye out for me when she was there to check my customer service, what I was kind of like front of house. But I definitely had a moment of, oh my God, I've got a stalker.
Maybe she did the full secret shopper and came in disguise.
Maybe. She's got amazing blonde curly hair, so I feel like I would have clocked her if I had.
You can wig that up. Wig and a hat.
Never know, do you?
And a bit of a moustache, and then...
So that's probably the weirdest thing that was said to me in an interview. The most disheartening thing that was ever said to me in an interview is basically being told that I wasn't good enough for the job I was interviewing for, but I would have been good for my wedding job, which I eventually got with them. But I was sat down and she said to me, I think you'd be a lot better at weddings than corporate. And I sat in the interview like, I agree, to be honest with you. And then obviously got a call to say I hadn't got the corporate job because she had basically told me that in the interview anyway. And I was like, oh no. And then 3 months later, she rang me to tell me that they had a wedding position open if I wanted to come in and have another interview for it.
Yes, I had one of those interviews. I saw an advert for a compliance job or sort of an auditing type job on computer systems. So you have a real dig around in the data and find some inconsistencies. And there wasn't much in the terms of requirements for this. I thought, oh, I'll apply and see what happens. So applied and went for the interview, and they started asking these questions. I'm sorry, I have no idea whatsoever. And he said, so do you think you're qualified for this job? And I went, frankly, no. It's really, really interesting, but I think I may not be. He went, no, he said, I don't think so either. He said, so let's spend the rest of the time just chatting about a couple of things that we do. And it was really interesting, the way they pull through data and pick out mistakes and nefarious activities. But I've had, this is my 40th year of bluffing my way through software development. So I've had a few interviews, and that included a good few years of contracting. So you would go through periods.
A lot of interviews.
Well, you go through periods where you only work for 3 months on something, and then you're off looking for something else again.
Yeah.
So there was lots and lots and lots of that. And I did have some very odd experiences. I had the no interview job, where I got the job without an interview. And a friend of mine was working there, and he recommended it. Yeah. Well, I phoned the agency to say, when am I going to get the interview? And they said, oh, no, they phoned. You can start on Monday. But I haven't had the interview. No, it's fine. Just turn up. Are you sure? And yeah, I did. I was there for 2.5 years. So it's obviously managed to bluff my way through that one.
Crazy.
Yeah. And then there was the interview with no questions, or very few questions, which turned out to be an absolute nightmare. And I think if you go somewhere and they're not asking very much, then run away, because something not right there.
My interview for the job that I've just got was about 5 or 6 questions. The whole interview took about 15 minutes.
Yeah, but you had a massive questionnaire to fill in, didn't you?
I did, yeah. The actual application, it was a very long application, actually. Yeah. You are right. So they learn a lot. It's more about just hearing me speak and seeing what I'm like as a person, I guess, for that one. But
yeah, absolutely. So in this case, it would have been quite a short CV, because that was in the 80s, so there wasn't that much on it. And that would have been it, plus the interview. So I've been on the other side of interviewing as well, which is just as unpleasant, to be honest.
Strangely, I have too, at my young age of 24.
And what was your experience of that?
I hated it. I just want to be nice and, not have to ask horrible questions. And especially when they start blundering, I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, I've had a few of those. I had one guy, he was coming for a contract position when I was permanent. The agency phoned me up and said, we just need to tell you about this chap. He's a little unconventional. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, his dress and his appearance is a bit odd.
Oh, God.
And I can only describe him as looking like the Great Gonzo from the Muppets. He was a very, very free individual, let's put it that way. And he was brilliant. So got on really well. perfectly qualified for it. Started and yeah, he was superb. But,
wasn't as weird as he dressed.
He was.
Yeah.
But he was good at what he did, and he didn't drive, which was interesting. So he would appear in the morning in a taxi, which was a bit extravagant, but contract rates in the 80s, pretty good indeed. And one of the other things I've done for developers is a very simple programming test. This is on the basis that sometimes you go and they ask really odd questions, really, stuff that you just don't need to know on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And the chap that came up with this reckoned that you could separate the wheat from the chaff with just a very simple programming test. And so I tried it for one set of interviews, and it was incredible. Some people just couldn't do it, and the one guy that did it really well has turned out to be brilliant.
Yeah, they still do that. My partner he's a recruiter in IT and tech, data science, sorry. I think that's the proper term for it. But yeah, I always hear him saying, it's just a 15-minute test, it's not hard, it's quite simple. But yeah, I don't think people like doing them these days by the sounds of it, though.
Well, it's difficult with so much technology and so many different ways to do it. I look on my bookshelf and I've got a book from the 80s which covered COBOL, and it's 6 millimetres thick. And yet the one I've got for databases, one particular database, is about 8 centimetres thick.
I love a database.
Do you now?
Yeah. And a spreadsheet.
They're not the same thing.
No, I know, that's why I said and a spreadsheet.
And a few obscure interviews as well. When I was contracting, I had one at an electricity company in Guildford, which had the most bizarre test I've ever come across. And I did it, and they came out and said, "What did you think of that test?" And I said to them, I'll be really honest with you. It doesn't prove anything. It just proves that you know a lot of stuff, not that you know how to use it. It's a bit like knowing intricately the measurements of the ends of every type of posi-drive screwdriver, but have no idea what to do with it. It just doesn't prove anything at all. And I had another one with a company this was pre-Oyster cards, but it was just on the cusp of it. And they produced systems that would measure journey time and stuff like that from the cards that you were using. And they had a full underground station in the offices, complete with a man working behind the counter. Very bizarre. Yeah, very bizarre. But because they were also an engineering company, the test they gave you was full of stuff like Boyle's law and all sorts of... I was thinking, what? So, again, did the best I could. And I don't know what happened with that. I think I got something else before they came back. Yeah, very odd. Very difficult thing to do on both sides, I think. And, I mean, you've experienced the frustration of sending CVs and applications and really not being heard. It's quite hard to get through the noise.
Especially when you get a big application that takes you put a lot of effort in, you change your CV, you change your cover letter, you send it off, and you hear absolutely nothing until a little thing pops up from Indeed being like, it's been 3 weeks, they've passed to the next stage. And you're like, great, thanks.
Soul destroying is what I would say. And I know there's a lot of people out there struggling. And we feel for you.
Definitely. Keep going. It took me 3 months, but I got there.
Now, Lippy, one of our favourite board games.
Absolute favourite.
Monopoly, where you can basically anger the rest of your family for very long periods of time.
Yeah.
Now, did you know it was invented in 1903, or the origins go back to 1903?
That's quite a long time.
It is quite a long time, isn't it? A lady called Lizzie Maggie. Yeah, it appears that she hand-draw the board and played it like that for a while. And then apparently, and there's a little bit of mystery surrounding this and a bit of substitute, I suspect. It was left at a gentleman friend's house called Charles Darrow, who eventually found it and then sold it to Parker Brothers, claiming that he had invented the game, which obviously he hadn't.
Oh, sneakery.
Very sneaky. And apparently there is a book out about this, which would be quite interesting. This article on The Guardian lists her as a left-wing lady. I don't know whether that's relevant at all. But Monopoly's a game played at quite sort of world championship level. It's not just a board game for Christmas and arguments. It is actually...
No, it's very tactical. Very
tactical. Game. And it's interesting. I did a little bit of research and looking at top 10 tips for for Monopoly. So I'm going to list them out now, because some of them are quite interesting. So straight from an episode of Billions or Suits is losing is not an option.
Yes.
So that's a lot about mindset, I suspect.
The end game is to win.
Yeah.
My number one tactic is to win.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There's no doubt at all. Keep the cash flowing. That's quite clever, really. Applies to not only Monopoly, but...
business, personal life.
Absolutely, yes.
All aspects.
All aspects of it. Don't turn up your nose at the small fry.
No. I love a good brown.
Absolutely. So don't go straight for Hotel or Mayfair, because you will win big, but people don't land on that as much. And we'll come on to that in a minute. Actually, that's quite interesting. Later in the game, a few long stretches in jail won't hurt. And in fact, I saw an interview with a Monopoly player donkeys years ago, and he said his aim is to get lots of houses on properties and then go to jail. He said, because you're not spending anything, and it costs you $50 to come out, but that's 3 goes where you're not landing on stuff, and other people are, and you're still taking money.
Did you just call it $50?
I did.
It's 50 Monopolies. It's Monopoly money, so it's Monopolies.
Okay, 50 Monopolies then.
Thank you. But yeah, I actually very much agree with that. You're making money, you're not spending it.
Indeed, absolutely. That's not a recommendation for life, incidentally.
No, that is just for Monopoly.
Just for Monopoly, yeah. So tip number 5 is build 3 houses on each street as soon as possible. So that's obviously the sweet spot there.
That's when you start to get your money boosters.
That's right. And then there's a heat map here of the best properties to go to, based on all sorts of statistics. Go on and have a guess.
I reckon the top one is orange.
Now, unfortunately, the heat map hasn't got the picture of the properties on it.
Has it got like free parking and things on it?
Yeah, so
you can work out roughly.
Yeah, so if you go to free parking, if you go 2 squares backwards,
that's
3
orange.
Squares backwards, that's orange.
That's orange.
Yeah,
yes!
So those 2, very, very good.
Yeah. Orange.
And then after free parking, second one after
reds.
is pretty good. Yeah,
the Strand, I think, is the second one after.
And the reason for that is people going to jail.
So because they jump the rest of the board.
Well, absolutely, but you go to jail and then you're likely to throw a 7. Statistically, that's the most likely number you're going to throw, which will put you straight in those 2. So interesting. Never buy utility or railway companies. Interesting one, because I always quite like those. Yeah,
I think you get a nice little bit of money from them.
You do, but it's they're saying throughout the whole game you have a measly 3% chance of earning money from them.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting, so avoid those. 7, learn this heat map by heart. Yeah. I'll put the link on.
No, that's just for me and you.
Oh, good point, actually.
We'll become grand masters of Monopoly like they are in chess.
Yes, yeah. But the chances of our family listening to this podcast are pretty close to 0, so...
True, that is true.
Number 8 is try to get the orange streets.
Yeah, the orange ones are the best. Because they're a little bit more expensive. They're not too much more expensive. And then...
well, it's the frequency of which people will land on them that makes them profitable. Yeah. Number 9 is buy everything that's 7 squares from your opponents.
Oh, but how can you necessarily do that?
Well,
unless you're 7 squares ahead.
But I suppose if somebody goes in front of you and you're quite close together and they land on a square and then you throw 7 plus however far you are behind, then that's a good one to buy, because statistically they're more likely to throw a 7 than any other combination.
True.
So they'll land on that one. So it sort of makes sense, but that's sort of quite ninja.
Very circumstantial, that one.
Well, I think the opportunity will present itself fairly infrequently, but it just makes it a little bit more tactical. Yeah. Then number 10, which is going to be impossible for you, say nothing during the game.
That's all I do, is talk through the whole game.
Yes, so to take a page out of Harvey Specter, obviously one of the characters in Suits, only speak if you're asked a question. Otherwise, keep quiet, stay cool, and wear your best poker face.
I don't have a very good poker face either.
No, well, that's not the least of the problems in that sentence for me, is it? So Monopoly is known as causing one or two arguments.
It is.
There is a list, top 10 list of the arguments that Monopoly causes. So we'll just run through those very quickly.
Yes.
People making up rules.
We don't do this too much, I don't think.
I think the problem is it's not so much people making up rules, because there are family rules, and we've always had fines go into the middle, and if you land on free parking, you get the pot, whatever that might be. And I think that's quite a common rule. I don't think that's particularly unusual.
And we don't do any of that auctioning nonsense.
Well, funny enough, I was looking at the rules, and when you land on a square... although they're not squares, are they? They're rectangles. When you land on one, if you don't buy it, the bank is obliged to auction it.
Yeah, it's just, that's faffy.
Well, it makes the game go quicker. That's the only
that.
thing. Oh, we don't need that. No, that's very true. I don't think it's so much people making up rules, it's people thinking they know the rules and just splurting it out without actually checking.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's people that think they know the rules rather than making them up.
Yeah.
Number 2, which I think we've both suffered from, is people being too cocky when winning.
Oh, always.
Yeah, just a bit too smug.
Yeah, I tend to buy too many things and then I'm like, I have no money left and I've just landed on a big one.
Someone buying a property you want, even when they don't need it.
You do that a lot.
I do that a lot, but the word need in that sentence is interesting.
Because that is the point of the game, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you just don't sell it for anything.
Well, the thing is, if you...
I have something you want.
Well, yes, if you're blocking somebody else making a set, then I think you do need it. I disagree with that one quite strongly. This one. People taking too long to take their turn.
I don't understand why it takes long. You roll the dice, you move your piece, and whatever you land on happens.
Yeah, but you know what happens is 6 of you playing, one of them is bound to have some sort of D, so they're not concentrating on the game. And they forget it's their turn, and it comes around, and they're looking at the dice, go, whose go is it? Oh, it's my go. and then they faff around. So
there's one person in our family who is being brought to mind.
Absolutely. Number 5, someone stealing from the bank.
And this is always the same person.
Well, it's two people I've played with who've been guilty of that.
Personally, in our family... the mother is not allowed to be in control of the bank because she steals.
Well, that's...
accidentally.
That's the next one. Who gets to be the banker?
To be honest, it's normally Charlotte, isn't it?
Yes.
She likes being in control of the money and she would never steal from the bank.
No, she wouldn't. No.
If she did it by accident, she would probably pay it back.
Almost certainly, yeah. She'd probably underpay herself more than anything. Yeah. Next one is somebody deliberately miscounting their move. I do that a bit, but not deliberately. It's just inability to count more than anything else.
I don't think I've done that. I quite like maths.
Yeah, well, yes. Number 8, the property auction process, which I just said we don't really do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Number 9 is a choice over tokens.
That's not normally an argument, to be fair.
If I'm not the car, I get quite upset.
Yeah, but everyone just lets you be the car, and I don't really care who I am.
That's because I get quite upset.
Yeah, true. I'm going to be the car next time. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get there first. I'm going to take it.
I'm not going to play then. And number 10 is what the rules of free parking are. So we're back to that one again.
Yeah.
So if you're playing Monopoly this Christmas and you get into a bit of an argument, there is help available, or at least there was in 2016. I don't know if it's still available, but Monopoly launched a helpline that ran from Christmas Eve to Boxing Day. And the idea was, yes, it would mediate family arguments caused by the game.
That's so funny.
Yeah, absolutely hilarious. And,
you can imagine, though, there are some families where it starts as a Monopoly argument and then it escalates and there's all sorts of drama going on. Divorces and...
Well, I have had a phone call on a Saturday night from one of the players that previously had raided the bank asking about clarification on a rule in Monopoly, which was a bit odd.
Yes.
I think there may have been a little bit of alcohol involved in that conversation.
Most likely.
Yes. So if you are playing Monopoly over Christmas, do keep it safe and do keep to the rules.
Yes.
So, Lippy, have you got a top tip for us this week?
I do. My top tip is for all those parents out there who are struggling at the moment with excited children who are being a bit naughty. I think they've just broken up from school or about to break up from school. You've got the dreaded few weeks of the Christmas excitement. So my top tip is wrap empty boxes as presents, and when the children misbehave, throw them in the fire.
That is very cruel.
It's like a scaled up Elf on the Shelf. The kids are used to that now. They know that's just a game. The boxes, the presents being burnt is a whole new level that they will not be expecting. And I bet you those kids are going to be so well behaved after a present is thrown in the fire.
Could you explain the Elf on the Shelf then?
So the Elf on the Shelf, he's meant to be watching, isn't he, all the time? He's Santa's little helper. He watches the children all the time, and then it's a bit of a naughty elf, so he does like little things in the night, and every day the kids come down and he's done something new.
Okay. I saw a photo on, I think it might have been Facebook, I can't remember, where a mother had arranged a set of small chicken bones in the shape of one of those elves on the shelves, saying that and the poor child was absolutely distraught. I mean, just so upset about the whole thing, which as a parent you do these things and regret it horribly afterwards. But it was a mixture of mirth and sadness there. So,
they also, if you Google adult Elf on the Shelf, there are some hilarious photos where adults have bought them and put them into compromising positions.
I can imagine.
Doing some very funny things. So if you want a good giggle, Google that.
Yes, I had a friend of mine who has a tendency to do that in department stores with various objects. But yes, you know who you are. Well, after last week's stunning grumpy facts, which I did do a little bit more research on, and it does appear to be true, with Dennis the Menace, and I thought we'd go for something a little more sensible this week. So, Grumpy's fact of the week is: puff adders can switch off their own smell, so predators can't locate them.
What's a puff adder?
Well, I thought it was a rap star, but that's Puff Daddy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when I found this, I thought, oh, that's interesting.
You can turn off his own smell.
And then realised, of course, it's some sort of snake, which are not my favourite creatures, to be honest. They do, terrify me for reasons. Because they move without legs, I think. Yeah. That's the thing. Mind you, worms don't terrify me. So
Surely you would just live with no smell. Why would you turn it? You would just keep it off.
Well, maybe if you needed to attract a mate. Maybe
you just turn it on then and then turn it back off again.
So default setting should be off.
Yeah. You turn it on rather than turn it off.
You'd think that would be safer, wouldn't it? Even if you're marking territory. We suppose you could remember to turn it on, but I wonder how they do it as well. Is there a little switch somewhere?
I might Google it. There must be a nature programme on it.
Oh, there's bound to be. There's loads on. National Geographic, it's astonishing.
Tiny World is a good one.
Is that the Disney
Gone a bit off topic there.
Is that the Disney ride?
No.
Oh, no, it's a Small World, yes. It's a different thing entirely. So that's it for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I would like to thank our sponsors, however we don't have any. If you're enjoying our rambling podcast and can spare a few pennies to help with our hosting costs, please head over to patreon.com/Lippy and Grumpy and also leave a good review or a bad one. If you have a topic you'd like covered, please leave us a message via our website, lippyandgrumpy.uk. So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.
Goodbye.